All right, everyone, welcome. We have another animator interview, and today's interview is with Christina Richard. Um, so Christina, I always want to start with this with my, when I do my interviews. Is there any work you think my students would have seen of yours?
Oh, well, let me just turn that off. I worked on, when I worked at Wild Brain is a studio in San Francisco, and I worked there, oh, in the late 90s. Um,
Hmm.
and we worked on some Willy Wonka commercials, and they
Oh,
were
okay.
the first ones that came out. So we did like Runts and Nerds and a few of those. And
Sure, that's fun.
yeah.
So some other commercial work that my students may have seen.
Yeah, that and well, and I also worked in educational software. So if you were learning how to read at your school library and you
Hmm.
had the CD-ROMs, and so the company was called Living Books, and
Hmm.
we would just have different books like a Dr. Seuss book, and you'd learn how to read.
Oh, nice.
So my students
Those
sometimes
are from some educational games,
yeah,
maybe.
educational games, but this was the 90s. So this would have,
Right,
students today, this would have been like in your school library on the
right,
computer kind of thing. Very old.
sure. So one thing I always sort of ask my people I interview, where does your love or interest in animation come from?
Well, I've always loved animals, and
Uh,
when I was a kid, they would have the Magical World of Disney every week, like every Sunday night, I think.
okay.
And this was back, before streaming and before VCRs. So,
Right.
and I really liked Winnie the Pooh. That was my favorite cartoon. And so that would only be on once a year. And you
Okay.
wouldn't necessarily know when, like if you had the TV guide. And so it was like a big deal to watch cartoons. And so for me, especially Disney cartoons, and going to Disneyland or Disney World when I was a kid. But I also grew up watching Looney Tunes, so Bugs Bunny.
Mhm.
um, I just always loved cartoons. That was I'm a very visual person, so I have a very visual brain. So as a kid, I just loved seeing the colors, and I also grew up in Canada, so we have very dark, dreary winters, and so the
Right.
vibrant colors of cartoons and also the narration would like the voice talent back then was really good. Like I even watched a show, we watched a lot of Saturday morning cartoons, and we watched a show called Super Friends. And I
Okay.
watch it now on TV. And it's like the animation's very limited, but the voice talent is so good. And
Sure.
so it keeps you totally engaged. And so I
Sure.
always loved the voice talent um and I love to draw. I was always drawing at a young age too.
Okay. So you love cartoons, you love drawing, kind of makes sense that that would, go along with animation. Did you go to school, like college or university for drawing or
Yes.
art, I should say?
Yeah. So I did 1 year just at Ontario College of Art, which was in Toronto.
Okay.
That was more of just a foundation year. And then I went and I studied animation specifically at Sheridan College, which
Mhm.
is a suburb of Toronto. And
Okay.
that's really when my love of the animation as an art form really took off. So I'd always loved art, like I'd loved illustration, and I thought I was going to be a children's book illustrator. Um, but once I took my first animation class and I discovered the magic of movement,
Hmm.
then I really fell in love with drawing. And I also just really I liked drawing more than painting. So
Okay.
um with animation that you really you learn there's a specific way you learn how to draw, and in a way it's like drawing. It's like if you do some life drawing, so you draw with your whole arm, and
Right.
we use a coal erase pencil, so it's this red pencil here.
Hmm.
um, and I just really enjoyed learning those principles specifically for animation.
So you go to school, you sort of get the foundations of animation. Where do you go from there?
So my school, it was a 3-year program.
Mhm.
I was really lucky because um, there weren't a lot of colleges. There was my college and Cal Arts at the time.
Mhm.
And so we had companies that who'd come to our college. So we had a company from the Bay Area here. They were actually in Novato. They were called Broderbund Software. So they came to my college and they offered me a job. And we had other companies too. So this was the beginning of ILM, Industrial Light and Magic. They were just starting. So it was kind of just the beginning of 3D animation. So different studios were coming, but my style, I wasn't interested in 3D animation so much.
Okay.
I was a more storybook, I had kind of more cutesy style. So
Sure.
this company, Broderbund, what they were doing was they were animating children's books and making these CD-ROMs. So it was a perfect fit, for my style.
I
So
remember Broderbond as a kid because they made Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego,
yes,
which I
yeah.
played excessively as a kid.
Yeah.
I probably played a couple of the other games, but that's the one that stayed. When people say Broderbond,
Yeah.
I think they did the King's Quest series, right? Am I
They had missed. That was
oh
a
man, maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
yeah. And then Where in the World was Carmen San Diego even became a cartoon, like a TV cartoon.
Yeah, yeah, it was.
Yeah.
So sorry, I didn't mean. So you were working for Broderbond and doing kind of illustrative stories, is that?
I was animating. That was a really fun time. It was a fun job. So what we would do, I would be on a team, and there on a team, there'd usually be two animators and there'd be one programmer.
Mhm.
We'd have like a line producer who'd kind of keep us all on schedule, and we'd have a sound designer. And so they would give us a whole year usually to produce a game. And
Okay.
so a children's book, I don't know how many pages it would have, like say 20 pages. So
Okay.
we'd have then 20 screens. And so we would just take say if it's say if it's a Dr. Seuss, where we create that same image from the book, and then we create animations. So we'll make things clickable on the screen. And we would have brainstorming meetings as a team to come up with, oh, what would be a funny gag, if something's clicked on. So that part of the job was really fun because, as an animator, you're kind of told what to do, when you're working in film and later on when I worked in commercials. And so looking back, that was really a special time that it was this kind of motley crew of people. It was fun to work with the programmers because they're very different than the artists. And
Right.
yeah, and we'd all meet together and we'd all be a team together for a whole year. And we had good budgets because it's tech, tech's always a good
Right.
industry. And so that was really fun. And then I would draw on paper and then scan the work in. And now technology is so much better, of course, for 2D animation with TV Paint. That's a really good program.
Oh, I haven't heard of that one. I should look that one up.
Yeah, it's a free program. You can download it for free. You just can't save anything off of it, but you can
Okay.
totally play around with it.
Is it tablet based?
No, it's off a desktop. They want
Okay.
you to use like a Wacom
Right, right.
tablet, but you don't need a Wacom. But when I teach my students now, we just use Procreate with the
Sure.
Apple Pencil. And then
Yeah, I let my student, for 2D, I let my students use Procreate. I teach them programs that have keyframing ability, like
yeah,
tweening ability, like we use Anime just because that's a pretty cheap.
yeah,
But it's like mostly just because they may be in a scenario where that helps save time. But like a lot
yeah.
of people want to use Procreate because of course it's just more
Yes,
way fun.
yeah, the nice thing with Procreate is you can draw your little loop and then you can upload it into say TV Paint or into Adobe Premiere,
Mhm.
and then
Right.
work on it that way.
The one thing that's kind of interesting, and I kind of wanted to bring this up a little bit, is, I think what you were doing, a lot of times when we think about animators, we obviously think about like an animated movie, like The Little Mermaid or The Lion King or a Pixar film. But I tell students it's like, well, yes, that and a lot of people maybe that's what they aspire to because that's the sort of thing that inspired them. But there's a lot of work in commercials, although that's, kind of a subset of the kind of animation, but doing game animation. Like you're not the first person I've talked to who, had gigs where they were animating in the digital sense, not for a movie or a TV show or even a commercial, but animating for a game. Another person I interviewed, Gene Ham, he was doing, I think he said it was for Dick Tracy. He did a lot of the animation of the characters, right? And I tell my students now, it's like, especially in the Bay Area, I was like, well, if you want to work on a film or TV, I mean, things are changing, but you probably need to be in the LA area. But if you're going to be up here, it's like most of it's probably going to be more game related, where it's like, okay, you're going to animate these characters for this cutscene that's going to go into a video game, or even animating the character for like a simple casual game someone might play on their phone. It's like, the character runs, the character grabs something, all of it
Yes.
has to be animated. And that's another area to consider, at least,
Yeah, I had a friend. He actually worked at ILM, but then he did freelance work. And I worked with him. I worked at a company. It was part of the Lucas companies, but it was again, it was educational technology. It was called Lucas Learning. So it was similar to Broderbund, where we were producing educational technology, CD-ROMs. But so my friend, so he had been an ILM animator, 3D animator, and then he kind of worked in games with me. And then he even what he found was really lucrative was he was an animator working on the when you go to a casino and they've got the everything's
Oh,
animated
yeah.
now on the thing. What are they called?
No, it's a slot machine. I remember
Slot machines.
when me and my friends, I think, went to E3 in 2004 to look for jobs, and one of the
Oh,
ones that was there was like, gaming casinos.
yeah,
And I had an ethical question of whether I should do that or
yeah, I know,
not.
yeah. But I
They probably would have hired me. I was just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, these days, who knows? I'm a little more open to that kind of stuff. But like back then, I was, but like, yeah, it's you got to think kind of in alternative ways of where animation may exist, or even now, it's like it may not even be a game. It may just be like, when you click on a like button and it like little animation appears in Twitter
Right.
or Facebook or
Yeah.
whatever. It's like that
Right.
has to be animated. Someone has to
Yes.
do that.
Yeah.
So just thinking beyond just the traditional idea of what animation means as a career, like
Yeah.
you're literally, everyone kind of pictures like a Disney animator over a easel, but like, there's different ways to
Yeah.
be an animator, and different, whatever is interesting for the person.
Yeah. And in the Bay Area, and also after I worked at Lucas Learning, um, I also worked at Leapfrog, which was a very big toy company. And what
Mhm.
was really interesting about that company, that they're in Emeryville. And what happened was all the people I remembered of my, say, 20 years of working up until that point, we all worked together at Leapfrog. So even though we get laid off at different companies, it didn't really matter because people still needed animation. And
Right.
we did go through some ups and downs with, the dot-com bubble burst during my career. And it was, people would get scared, but, people always need new art and animation. And so the platform might change, but the work stays the same. So
Right.
so it was very fascinating. Now I'm teaching, so I'm kind of retired from the freelance world. But when I was freelancing, and it's a fairly small group here in the Bay Area, and you just find out through word of mouth, where the next jobs are, what company's hiring, and you all just say, oh, hi, and it's actually quite nice. And you have to um, give up the idea that it's fear-based, because there is work that needs to be done, there in the future. There's always new work that people want to see. And So yeah, it's just the platform that changes, and we just
Right.
and you just keep your people always want, classical animation, and that can't be done with AI. It has
Right.
to be created by humans.
Sure. So you were working for Rotorbomb, then you moved over to Wild Brain, right? And you kind of did something similar. You did
Yeah,
animated.
I did. I worked at Wild Brain for maybe 5 years or so.
Mhm.
And then I also was doing freelance, even though I was working full time at Wild Brain, I was still doing freelance in gaming. Uh,
Okay.
and so and I worked on an animated short at Wild Brain as well. When I was there at Wild Brain, the interesting thing when I worked on the Willy Wonka commercials was we were animating on paper,
Okay.
but the backgrounds were all done in 3D. So
Okay.
the way they brought them together was they would have to Xerox, so they'd print out each background because the background might be panning or moving and it would be very mechanical. And then we would have that on paper and draw on paper, and then it would get scanned. Like it was such a backwards way of
Sure.
creating because it was so archaic. It was the very beginning stages of
Up 3D.
meshing 3D and 2D together.
Sure. So, okay, so you're at Wild Brain and doing some game work, but also doing freelance, right?
Yeah.
What's the kind of I mean, for some of my students, what's the kind of difference in the lifestyle or the feel or the business of being a freelancer versus working for a specific company like you did?
When I worked freelance, you do sign a contract. So, um, so you'd sign on with a company. It might be, 6 months or something like that. Um, so with those tech companies, it always felt, there was a stability to it. Like it
Sure.
sounds scary, but actually looking back, it was very, very stable. And then the other thing too is, so my first job, so I'm working at Broderbund, and then what happens is those people that I work with, they move on to other places. And so when I start working freelance, my new boss, like then I did work at this Irish company, and it was an educational company. But my
Okay.
boss was my old colleague at WildBrain,
Right.
my old supervisor. And so become you really feel everyone feels kind of like family. So
Right.
it feels very easy. It doesn't, the stress goes away, when your boss is someone you can trust and count
Sure.
on and all that.
So that's for working for Wild Brain or working freelance or
Working
no.
freelance.
Okay, but then how does it differ than maybe when you worked specifically for Wild Brain or Broder?
When I worked for WildBrain, I worked there. The difference is well, when I was there, it was there were less women in the industry then, so
Right.
that played a part in it. So it was all the founders were men. The
Right.
women could be line producers, so there were a lot of women as line producers, but um, I felt like me as a woman, gaming felt like a better fit because it felt a bit more. Animation's always been more of a boys' club, so gaming had more women
Oh, okay.
in
That
it.
I didn't know. I would not have
I
guessed.
mean, gaming has a lot of men too,
Right.
but it's a bit more modern. Animation is quite a strong boys' club. And the
Sure.
gaming I did is educational gaming, so that's a lot different than,
Sure, sure.
yeah.
Okay, so you're doing freelance, then you moved on to Loop ILM, right? To do some
I worked at LucasArts.
uh
I worked at LucasArts and I stayed there for about 3 years. Um, and that was a really good company. Uh,
mhm.
and that yeah that kind of George Lucas was very interested in education because he went to UCLA as a film student, and he was a terrible high school student. and he
Right.
said he never would have gotten in, by today's standards. So he's trying. He always wants to give back. So he has different educational companies, and
Okay. Great.
yeah, it was fun working for there because you'd get a lot of perks. Like we'd get to watch free movies, on Saturdays at different theaters, or they had
Mhm.
all this merch. I worked there during the first Star Wars movie that came back, and so
Oh,
and
you mean when
all
they got re-released back? I remember when they got
yeah,
re-released.
with Jar Jar Binks,
Oh,
that
you mean that one, the
yeah,
prequel?
that one.
Because there was a period he re-released the old ones in the 90s and then he
Oh
started the
yeah.
new ones. So,
Yeah.
okay. You're talking about the actual new
Yeah,
prequel.
the actual movies, yeah. And then friends of mine got to be in the movie, or I remember the funniest story with that was they had all this extra merch,
Uh,
merchandise from that movie. So they did this shopping spree. So on a Saturday, they had this big parking lot and they filled it with all their junk. They made aisles of all the merch
right.
at a time. They give you a little bag and then they say, okay, you can go Saturday at 11 from 11 to 11:30. So you show up and then you can take whatever you want for free. Whatever you can carry
All
out,
right,
you
that'd be
know.
good.
But
That's funny.
but there were certain things like I got some cool things, but so stuff like that was, and he had a really good July 4th party and
Oh, that's nice.
like that. Yeah.
Cool. Um, so I was looking at your kind of LinkedIn. So it seems like after you kind of worked in animation and in the education, you kind of then went into sort of book illustration.
Yes, well, I moved up. I lived on an island up in British Columbia.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so I was doing my own, I was selling my own artwork up there and
Oh, nice.
uh, produced a book up there. Yeah.
Cool. So how is that different than your time doing it? I mean, what are sort of the pros and cons of that versus what you were doing
Well,
before?
what I really liked up there was I felt like I needed a break from the digital world. And I think it was after 20 years of maybe or 10 years of working. And I just needed a reset. So I moved to an island and had a little farm and had animals. I had farm animals for the first time. But the biggest thing was they had an artisan market. So I was selling my own artwork to people face to face. And I really liked that because
Like the kind of community, the
yeah, the
personal touch.
community and just seeing what sells,
Right, right.
I just wanted to after, as an animator, your style is dictated by whoever your boss is. So
Sure, sure, of
I
course.
was like, okay, I need a break and decide what my style is.
What
And
your style is, yeah.
yeah, so I just took a breather.
Sure.
And it was great to connect with people.
Sure. As someone who does a lot, I know you do a lot of like characters and character design, not just, animating a walk cycle or something like that. So what are some tips or general advice you might give my students who of what makes a good character? Or what are some things to think about when designing a character that might be animated?
Yeah, I could send you a link. Well, I recommend these magazines,
Okay.
Character Design Quarterly, and I just discovered this artist here. He has I don't know if it's gonna show up or
Not
not.
quite coming through, but you can send it to me
Um,
later and I'll put it
yeah,
in.
I'll send it to you. So the most important thing is solid drawing. So
Sure.
that's one of the animation principles.
It
And
is.
it's really about instead of seeing a circle, you're seeing a sphere. So
Right.
paying attention to contour drawings, like so when you're drawing a character and even landscapes, you have to consciously think about the contour lines and what it looks like in 3D space.
Sure. Yeah, that's always, I mean, for any kind of drawing, whether it's that or uh you know, I'm totally having a brain fart here. I was gonna say animatic, but I mean like what am I thinking of? It's not a comic, but for a movie. Storyboard. That's the word I'm
Oh,
looking
yes.
for. Storyboarding. Like they're always like, yeah, you have to
Yes.
make sure
And
the
what's
story
great
is
about
right.
storyboarding too is it gives you a frame. So then
Right.
you can work the negative space. So it's
Right.
very important to draw storyboarding style and then to learn the different scene cuts. So there's a PDF. on I just downloaded. I'll send that to you too. That just shows quickly all the different camera angles so you
Sure.
know what to use.
Sure.
And using variety is always the biggest thing.
Outside of we just talked about specifically character design, but do you so here's my students, they've taken one class, done some very basic 12 principles of animation, and now they're like, okay, now what? Uh not to put pressure on you or anything, but what
Right.
advice you might give to these students?
Yeah. Well, it's important to, it's nice to see animation with sound. Uh,
Okay.
so if it's nice to create a demo reel with some sound, first of
Okay.
all, not just a demo reel that's no sound. And then it's also really important to show thinking process. So getting
Hmm.
used to animating a full character, or you can also do from the waist up. But you want to be able to see the feet planted, that you can move a character in space.
Sure.
And then, but a good assignment or a good kind of mini film you could do is to show a character like coming up to a box and then
Okay.
opening the box and then having something happen and they're surprised and they have a
To
reaction.
have that reaction shot.
And but
Yeah.
it's something with like showing a thought process because that's the hardest thing as animators. Like it's one thing anyone can show movement
Sure.
to show a character being in a neutral position and then reacting and then the audience believing that oh that's a real person having a reaction or that's a real character. Like so making it believable acting.
Sure.
That's the hardest thing.
Yeah, and that gets into timing and
Yeah.
physics. I always say that basically you always think about physics because everything in life is based on physics. So when not to say you have to follow it exactly, but like obviously because there's exaggeration, but like if the ball falls the way a ball would fall in real life, that pleases our mind because it's like that's what we don't
Yes.
see. If it doesn't follow that and there's not a logical reason, your brain's like, wait a minute, I don't know what's going on here, but something's not quite right. And that's
That's
where it starts to
right.
break a little bit. So yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with you with what you're saying with like the reaction and timing and making it feel real. Um, yeah. What here's a question I always ask all of the animators I took to. Where do you see animation going over the next couple of years?
Well, I think it'll get more independent. Like I was just watching some YouTubes on Pixar and the demise of Pixar. And
Okay.
um I have friends who worked at Pixar. Like it's sad, of course, but I feel like
By demise, you just mean more corporatization? Because
yeah,
obviously it's
well,
not doing bad financially.
well, I guess their
Economic-wise.
films aren't doing well. They used to always win the Oscars and they
Oh, you mean
now their films are
from a
not
credit point of
really
view.
as watchable.
Sure,
Yeah.
yeah.
They were so good, like it
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
the best. We loved Pixar films. So it's very sad that, I guess it's hard to stay on the top, but not I'm forgetting what you asked.
Oh, where animate we were talking about where animation is going in general, just like,
Yeah.
and you were saying you feel like it's going to move towards
Yeah,
more.
I feel like it'll be less a bunch of us working in big studios and it'll be smaller groups.
Okay,
You can get away with, a group of 10 where before it was like a group of 50 or even
sure,
more. So smaller groups and it won't necessarily be in LA, it'll be more,
sure.
it can be anywhere. It's already kind of like
I
that.
definitely have seen a lot more moving. Like I've been talking actually to studios in other countries. Like I've been interviewing some people in New Zealand, a couple studios there, a couple studios in South Africa. So it's yeah. I mean, partly due to economics and it's cheaper to
Yeah.
hire people there,
And yeah, you
but
can be on a team and the team isn't in the same
in the same
physical
room.
area.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can be all over the country. But
Sure.
what I like to say about young students, like when you're starting out, um, it's you want that in-person environment so you can have those other freelance times where you have to meet the people first and work with them first either at
Right.
school or and then you branch out and that's what I really noticed and that just kind of happens over time is
Sure.
companies just things change and And think, yeah, but as things disperse, your friends disperse and they kind of bring you with them, so that's
Sure.
the silver lining with layoffs and all that.
Well, I think I mean, I talked to another one of your colleagues at CCA, Anna Firth, and she was talking about kind of the sense of uh, social kind of networking. And it's like, you get to know people and you sort of know. And even my friend Arnie was like, yeah, you sort of build your name by being social and being reliable. Where it's like, if I'm going to get hired, people know that I can do the work and I'm not going to be late and I'm going to, do it on, do it to the quality. So that, as much as talent is important and creativity is important, it's also just sort of like um, people skills, getting along with people,
Right.
know that you're a good person and you're reliable and all the sort of things that we would want out of a coworker kind of situation.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, when I remember when I worked freelance, I'd be on a weekly schedule. This was when I would work in games and, um, you had to produce the work. They'd say, we need this X number of
Right.
scenes. And it didn't matter how good of an artist I was if I couldn't get it done,
Right.
like,
Well,
so,
that's kind of the thing I always stress with my students about due dates. I'm like, listen, this
yeah,
isn't me just trying to be mean or whatever, or thinking I'm so important. It's like, this is a life skill. Like, if you don't turn in your work to your clients on time, you're not going to have those clients anymore. Like,
right.
they're not going to put up with that. Or like, you better be so invaluable, so valuable that they can't not use you anymore or fire you or whatever. So it's like,
Yeah.
it's those general life skills that are important.
But it was a fun, I really enjoyed it. Like I enjoyed, once you get the right boss and it's a very enjoyable lifestyle. I think people are scared of it and they shouldn't be.
Oh, that's great. I agree with you. All right. That might be a good note to kind of end on. Where can people see any of your work, your drawings or paintings or other things?
Oh, um, well, I'm teaching at CCA in the city.
Sure.
I guess I have a website.
Sure.
I haven't updated it recently. But
You don't have to promote anything if you don't want to. I think.
yeah, I'm teaching Animation 1 right now, which I really enjoy. The reason why I love teaching Animation 1 is when I was a student and I learned animation when I was in Animation 1, it was such a magical time for me to learn these principles
Mhm.
um, and so I just love sharing it. And I teach the same assignments that I learned when I was a student. And this was back in 1991 when I was a first year student. And I had really good teachers. I had a teacher from the Don Bluth Studios.
Oh, nice.
There was a Disney teacher there too. So I love the history of animation too, just how it
Sure.
developed just with a bunch of creative types. So,
Great. So yeah, I'll post what your if you have any like websites, I'll post them for my students to take a look at.
and I'll send you some links of different artists that I really enjoy that have good tutorials
Yeah,
and
that'd be great. That would be very helpful stuff for my students. Well, we appreciate your time and getting to hear about all the stuff you've worked on. Thanks
thank you,
so
David.
much.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Okay, bye-bye.